Terminator Dark Fate, also known as Terminator 3. I went into this movie with very low expectations. I didn't really like Terminator 3. I didn't like Terminator 5. What was that? That was Genesis? Oh, that was horrible. That was a wretched experience. Notice I didn't say anything about Terminator 4. I want to come back to that. But Terminator Salvation. But this movie, I went in it with no expectations to like it at all. I thought it was going to be garbage, just a money grab, just a reason to get Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger back on screen. A lot of fan service. And so I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and I got to tell you, the first 45 minutes, I was like, okay, I'm actually kind of liking this. With the exception of one issue. But I want to save that, okay? I thought it was actually rather good, the first 45 minutes. We meet Ellen DeGeneres. I couldn't get Ellen out of my mind when the actress appears on screen. I don't know, I forget her name, but she plays Grace, the augmented human, right? I liked the actress who played Danielle, or Danny. I thought she was really good. Now let me just say, I haven't really been a fan of the Terminator films since Terminator 2. When I first saw Terminator 2, I couldn't stand it because to me, it was exactly the same story as the first Terminator, with the twist of a Terminator being John's protector. And that's what we got in all the subsequent ones, except for 4. That's why I think Terminator Salvation gets a lot of undue hate. I really enjoyed that movie. Only thing I didn't like about it was Sam Worthington turning out to be a Terminator. That was kind of stupid, and he wasn't aware of it, I guess. We've seen that in Genesis, with John Connor turning out to be a Terminator in Genesis. And we kind of get that element here where Danny's protector she's not a Terminator, but she's an augmented human being. Okay. And, she was okay in the role. She did pretty good. She was kick-ass. She didn't really have that much dynamism about her. It was just like full steam ahead. Not much subtlety there. But that's cool. I mean, Kyle Reese wasn't very subtle either. So I'll let that go. But even though I say I liked the beginning of the movie, I just, I knew going in it was going to be yet another chase movie where we have a young person being guarded by multiple people, okay? And that's what we got in this film. But it was kind of fresh, a young girl, Hispanic girl. It was kind of fresh seeing women take the roles that we've seen men take in this film. It kind of added a new dimension to it, and I kind of liked that. I also liked, I want to say his name was Gabriel Luna. He was good as a Terminator. I loved him as Ghost Rider in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. A lot of people didn't like that iteration of Ghost Rider. I did. So I liked him here. He's very menacing. I think he was a perfect complement to Robert Patrick's Terminator in Terminator 2. He played against type. He was small, kind of wiry, lithe, and I thought he did a great job. All right, so now I'm going to tell you one of the biggest things off the top. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but it was just annoying and I didn't like it. So I'm going to talk about it now without trying not to spoil it. But if you don't want to have any kind of spoiler stuff going on here, then jump ahead. I'll give you a visual cue. I'll wave my hand or something, okay? But at the beginning, there's a scene right at the top where we see a young CGI Linda Hamilton or Sarah Connor. Something happens that involves a death. I'll just leave it at that, okay? All right? And to me, that kind of undoes everything we've seen in Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. It's the same thing that Kevin Fincher did with Alien 3, where we invest in the characters of Newt and Corporal Hicks, and there was a third character, I think, that when we finish Alien 2 or Aliens, which was an excellent movie, but then we jump into Alien 3 and those characters are dead at the beginning of that film. Now that's not a spoiler because that movie came out in the late 90s, I believe. If you haven't seen it by now, too bad. So we have a similar incident that happens at the beginning of this film. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? I just thought that was a cheap shot. And even though I liked the beginning of this film, the first 45 minutes, I keep touting, that to me was just a cheap shill so that they could continue the same story, but just replace certain characters with new characters and just tell the same story again. And I thought that was cheap. I did not like that at all. Okay, it's okay to listen now. It's okay to listen now. So be that as it may, as I said, the first act of this movie, surprisingly entertaining. There's a scene that takes place in I think it's an auto manufacturing plant. I was genuinely surprised at how well I was liking it, okay? And by the way, this film is very progressive, very quote-unquote woke. Well, that's clear with the 3 women leads and the Hispanic female as the new John Connor, if you will. But also in the fact that they really kind of hammer in some of the things that we're dealing with today, like in this manufacturing plant, Danny's brother, or either his brother, I think it's his brother, yeah, her brother, he's being replaced by a robot in the manufacturing plant, and they do a whole thing about that. And I'll point out the other things as we go. But yeah, that was a great scene. Things keep chugging along, and then we get introduced, this is not a spoiler, we get introduced to Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor. And okay, was it good to see her on screen again? Sure. Genuinely, she kept things moving. Overall, it was great to see her character resurrected, right? But it was something in her performance, the way she was acting, she came across as kind of, I don't know, the way she was speaking her lines, kind of like she was pronouncing every word, or she reminded me of a drunk person who's trying to talk like they're not drunk.
My name is Sarah Connor. I hunt Terminators.
Okay, that's what and it kind of got a little, kind of made the fillings in my teeth kind of spark a little bit. Her performance was a little off-putting to start, but again, it's Linda Hamilton. She's back, and okay, I can overlook that. Then the movie goes along. We get into the middle of the second act, and we introduce Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, let me just say, I was very disappointed with what they did with his character. I thought I was going to get something new with him. Not at all. Not so much. He was full of funny lines. Well, they were attempted to be funny lines. They put him in a situation, he's living his life out in this log cabin, and his life has become something that is more than improbable, okay? But, it was humorous. That's fine. But then I have to say, him being introduced into the film, for me, other than a quick visual fanboy treat, it really cemented the fact that, okay, I really am getting everything I've gotten in every other Terminator film in this movie. And as a whole, as we go through the end of the second act into the third act, the movie became what I feared it was going to be going into it. Just another rehash, a retread of the same thing I've seen before. Only this time, instead of it being Cyberdyne and Skynet, which, and this might be spoilerish, which Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor, is shown that she did change the future, but then to make the story work or to give us a conflict, they create this all new type of world dominating thing called Legion. No explanation, no origin for how it came about, just literally that, well, you stopped Skynet, but then the scientists kept going and they created Legion. And so with Legion, we get Terminators that can split into two different entities. One is the exoskeleton and one is the endo-metal skeleton. So one Terminator can split into two Terminators and be just as deadly. Okay, whatever. And then in some of the flashbacks into the past, we see Grace fighting Terminators that also have octopus-like tentacles that impale people and shred them apart. And the movie for me falls apart at the end of the second act into the third act and the conclusion. There's a scene in this film that takes place at what looks like, it's not Hoover Dam, I don't think, but it's a hydroelectric power plant. So there's a big dam. And, you know, it sets up these set pieces. Some of the film takes place underwater. It's totally murky. I couldn't tell what the hell was going on. It was just very CGI heavy. It was just, for me, that was just boring. I wasn't excited anymore. I don't know what it was about the car plant, the battle that takes place in the car plant, but this stuff underwater and inside the hydro plant, there is kind of a cool standoff in the power plant that was kind of exciting. And I think that's what made some of the fight scenes in this film exciting, because you had a lot more acrobatics to them. You know, they really ramped up the choreography, and it looks nice. But so there was a nice fight scene in the third act, but it was undercut for me by a total leap in logic that I can't discuss because it would spoil too much. But I would say that if you come back to the past as an augmented human being and you have something that can stop the Terminators, you know, that the scientists gave you to take back into the past to stop the Terminators, why not just use that in the future to stop the Terminators? It made no sense to me, and that kind of undercut the whole scene, actually the whole movie. Just one of the major problems I had, again, was leaps of logic, plot holes. Some of it was very predictable, and we're just rehashing the story and just inserting new characters that are more diverse, which I did like. Like I said, I liked the actress who played Danny. I can't remember her name. But there's nothing new here. At least at the beginning, it was exciting because I see new faces, fresh faces. But then, like I said, they bring Linda Hamilton in, which that was fine, except for her acting choices. And then they bring Arnold Schwarzenegger in, and he basically does he's a two-dimensional actor to begin with, so he does the same thing I've seen before. And to me, it just kind of just brings the film down. A lot of things happen with characters that we've seen before, so there are no revelations in this film. You can predict them coming a mile away. One thing does happen with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character that I couldn't help but laugh. It was very reminiscent of Emperor Palpatine. And I don't know if the guys who wrote that scene were Star Wars fans or not, but I'm like, wow, the resemblance is uncanny. And going back to the clearly metaphorical or ripping from current events portions of this film, there's a scene I talked about, the car plant at the beginning of the film in the first act. There's a scene where Danny, Sarah Connor, and Grace try to hide out in Mexico City, and Danny makes a comment about, "I just wish you two weren't so white." Ouch. Okay. Wow. How cutting. Okay. And then there's a scene that takes place in Mexico City where people are being detained in cages. And it seemed like there was another scene, I can't remember. But yeah, this film had some political bent to it. I'm not complaining about it, but it's like, wow, not too subtle, are you? The movie ends as though they think that they could potentially create a sequel to it. But given the box office that I've been reading, I don't know if that's going to happen. So even though this movie did kind of fall apart for me as it entered the third act, I will give it props for actually entertaining me at the beginning. So I'm going to give it 3 reels. And I think I'm being overly generous. But like I say, even though I didn't like what they did with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was a little bit puzzled by Linda Hamilton's performance, the way she was saying her lines. It was a bit of nostalgia that kind of carried it over the hump. Well, keeps it from being a too real film. Okay, I like that it did keep my interest, and it was better than it should have been, given what we saw with Terminator 3 and Terminator 5. Again, I say take a look at Terminator 4 again, Terminator Salvation. I like that film. I know no one else does, but you know, if Terminator 7 has a story that involves someone coming back from the future to kill someone in the present who's going to end up being a resistance leader, I'm going to say I'm done. Are you listening, Star Wars? Are you listening? If after Rise of Skywalker, you do another trilogy where it involves the Second Order, which is an offshoot of the First Order, which is an offshoot of the Empire, and the Jedi and the Rebel Alliance have to fight it, I'm checking out. Okay? All right. Listen, if you like this review, please subscribe. Check out some back reviews that I've done. I'm going to do a review of Harriet, and I'm going to try to get a review of Ad Astra up, which is already like 2 weeks old. But hey, I've been busy. But again, subscribe, check me out, leave comments below, and as always, that's the martini.